What's going on, everybody? I'm back with another video. This video is going to be about the Europa League final between Villarreal and Manchester United. The game went into overtime and then penalty kicks and was decided by David De Gea's missed penalty kick, and they lost 11-10 on penalty kicks. So now, before we start, check out my book. It is out on Amazon. There's a link in the description below. Be sure to check it out and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, but let's get right into it. So Manchester United, they built with 4 defenders in their first line of build-up. The positioning of Shaw and Wan-Bissaka varied a little bit more than usual. Shaw, he had a more tendency to stay a little bit deeper, creating an asymmetric back 4, creating a 3-man build-up in the first line, while Wan-Bissaka would then go a little bit higher. But not only this, Shaw had the tendency to make underlapping runs, to then allow Rashford, just at our bottom of the screen here, to then have more space in the wide area and creating 2v1s going forward. Then also the double pivot of Manchester United between Scott McTominay and Paul Pogba. They had a few different movements they used throughout the game, one of which is when they stayed more centrally, the both of them, and pretty much their positioning was decided off of the central defenders. They always tried to create this staggering to create and promote diagonal passing options from one line to the next, but they also looked to create a back 3 with Scott McTominay dropping deeper or staying a little bit against the ball on the weak side half space, leaving Paul Pogba as a single pivot, and vice versa. Sometimes Paul Pogba would go into the left half space on this strong side and leave Scott McTominay as a single pivot, but Pogba's movement was more forward oriented into the half space, which is vacated, and the positioning of Bruno Fernandes as the number 10, staying in the central corridor, left the advanced half space vacated, which led to opportunities for Man U to try and create dynamic movement into this area between the Villarreal 4-4-2. But Villarreal's defensive setup was quite good in their 4-4-2. They did a good balance of man orientation, but also having high level of spatial control. So what I mean by this is their 4 midfielders here, they loosen up the horizontal compactness from the wide midfielder to the central midfielders, and these central midfielders are primarily staying quite narrow and close together because of the threat of Bruno Fernandes and Edison Cavani through the center. So this space here is where Man U have their players occupied. So this is the space that Villarreal prioritize. And then from here, they can always shift over into the vacated half space, but the connection between the wide midfielder and the other central midfielders is a bit greater than what we would typically think of a horizontally compact mid-block. So moving forward now in the video, the Villarreal mid-block shown in their 4-4-2, we see Luke Shaw underlapping, as we previously stated, with Rashford then being isolated 1v1 in the wide area. Then we see the Edison Cavani and Bruno Fernandes relationship through the central corridor, staying more centrally to then move into vacated half space or narrow the defense to then make room for players arriving in the advanced areas in the half spaces a little bit deeper and then making forward runs. Our double pivot of Scott McTominay and Paul Pogba is structured for circulation and transition, where on the weak side we have Mason Greenwood and Aaron Wan-Bissaka holding the width on the weak side. The Villarreal 4-4-2 shows the wide midfielders going a little bit wider, jumping to address the ball when the ball is in the wide area, leaving the back 4 more narrow, and this allows the fullbacks to then cover the half spaces and jump rather than the wide midfielders playing more narrow, vacating the wide area. So this gave them better access to the wide area and allowed for jumping of defenders to arrive in the half space, still controlling the space between the lines, while their 2 forwards were mainly responsible for the double pivot of Manchester United. So here's an example of the asymmetric back 4 used by Manchester United, with Luke Shaw playing in a deeper area. So Luke Shaw's position probably varied the most in this game than I have seen all season. He played in this deeper role, played in a wide position, and was making frequently inverted runs into a more advanced area. But when he was in this deeper role, this affected Paul Pogba and Scott McTominay to balance them between Scott McTominay in the central corridor and Paul Pogba just in the half space here, creating press resistant structures, trying to establish establish a strong sense of circulation within the team. Then Villarreal, as they moved forward, they played in a 4-1-3-2, and as they would move deeper, they played in more of a 4-4-2. This just gave them better control of Bruno Fernandes between the lines, but still gave them good access towards the ball and were able to apply pressure when Man U looked to progress. So we see our 4-1-3-2 now, with the three midfielders of Villarreal, and now our single holding midfielder controlling Bruno Fernandes between the lines. The two forwards occupying the double pivot of Man U. We see Luke Shaw playing deeper alongside the two central defenders, and the double pivot being covered by the two central forwards, and this then makes the wide area Villarreal zone of pressure, where they will look to win the ball back from Manchester United and go and press. And we see the asymmetry in the back four with Aaron Wan-Bissaka just playing slightly higher as more of a natural fullback rather than Luke Shaw, who's playing deeper. And now we see one of the movements of the double pivot. We have Lindelof and Bailly staggering themselves, one in the central corridor, one in the half space, and Scott McTominay drifting further into the weak side right half space, leaving Paul Pogba as the single pivot. And Paul Pogba is often used as the single pivot, where trying to benefit from his range of passing and his ability to pick out a more advanced pass. But with the defensive shape, the very well structured Villarreal often isolated these players between the lines and didn't allow them to get access to the ball and limited the Manchester United creation. And many times they reverted to longer diagonal passes, which gave them Villarreal time to shift and cover the dangerous areas, which then left Manchester United relatively ineffective during the game. So now Villarreal in possession, they played a 4-3-3. And now it was interesting, their offensive structure saw their fullbacks play in the wider area and create width oftentimes, whereas defensively they played quite narrow as a back four, and the midfielders did this job. But then they went with a 4-3-3 with three players playing in the central midfield roles, with a narrow forward three pinning the back four into more central positions, and the Man U 4-2-3-1, as we see here, with Pogba and Scott McTominay as the defensive midfielders, then Rashford, Bruno Fernandes, and Mason Greenwood as the three more advanced midfielders, with Mason Greenwood and Rashford oriented towards the fullbacks, which would often see their position, especially Rashford. Sometimes he would play more deeper than he's accustomed to in this game, with then Edison Cavani at the front of the defensive structure as the lone striker. So here we take a look at Villarreal's narrow front three, which is designed to take advantage of the jumping defenders of Manchester United. So here when Wan-Bissaka jumps to address the ball after Greenwood is beaten, this then leaves space in behind for Villarreal players to run into. And with the three central midfielders and tight connections through the central corridors, this gives the front three sufficient support to then facilitate forward play and fast transitions to secure second balls or counterpress quickly. It also is designed for the forward players to pin and push back the Manchester United defenders, which would then try and create more space between the lines in more dangerous spaces for the Villarreal players. So that's the analysis, guys. So it was an exciting game tactically, at least. I enjoyed it. So with some things to come, we'll see if Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the man for Man U to move forward with. Let me know in the comments if you think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Paul Pogba are in Manchester United's long-term future. So again, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one.